The honourable member for Brantford-Brant.
Madam Speaker, earlier this year, I asked the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship about the unprecedented backlog of immigration applications. The system struggles to recover from 2 years of the pandemic due to a lack of planning, crisis management, and poor leadership. If the approach is not changed, it will take years to catch up on the millions of applications in the queue. Shockingly, according to data from the IRCC, the backlogs have increased to more than 2 million applications across all categories. For over 2 years, the department has closed almost all in-person interviews, tests, citizenship ceremonies, and other appointments have been canceled. Offices shifted to working on a rotating basis, and while most Canadians transitioned to online work with minimal trouble, it's not the case with the IRCC and this government. Instead of identifying the problem that we as Conservatives have been flagging along the way and fixing it at the very beginning, the government ignored it. They had more than a year to do so, but then the first crisis hit. In September 2021, the Afghan government collapsed. Canada introduced special programs to resettle the refugees. With the government's broken immigration system, during the most pressuring 6 months, the government was only able to help 4,000 Afghans, or 10% of its campaign commitment. Then the second crisis hit. On February of this year, the Russian Federation launched an unprovoked attack and genocide against the Ukrainian people. Instead of implementing visa-free travel from Ukraine to Canada that Conservatives called for from day one, the government introduced the authorization for emergency travel, allowing Ukrainians to arrive in Canada on temporary resident visas. Ukrainian passport holders can travel visa-free to the European Union, the UK, Switzerland, Israel, and many other countries. None of them have any concerns about the made-up excuses by the Liberal minister. The Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration voted in favor of visa-free travel for Ukrainians. The Liberals voted against it. The members of this House also voted and passed a similar motion, but again, the members voted against it. To give you a perspective on why this is important, the Minister of Immigration claimed that that sort of change would require 12 to 14 weeks of work to implement because the department's IT systems would need certain renovations. Here we are, almost 11 weeks later since the beginning of the war. The system could have been already working, but the government failed to listen and act accordingly. To date, we've heard that more than 140,000 applications were submitted by Ukrainians. That's how much fewer applications in the queue it might have been if the Liberals had followed our advice and eliminated all visa requirements. And if this wasn't enough, we now have the third crisis across this country. Canadians are desperately trying to renew their passports, and while improvements were supposed to have come in to alleviate the backlog, little change has occurred. Nearly 500,000 applications have been received in March and April of this year. Streams of constituents are calling, writing to me, coming into my office about the issue. The government, Madam Speaker, had years to plan ahead to tackle the passport issue before it began. They should have just kept that in mind that until the pandemic hit, that the 10th anniversary of the 10-year passport was coming. Madam Speaker, we literally have a trifecta of burning issues in our immigration and citizenship systems, all of which were avoidable, all of which were preventable. Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Disability Inclusion.
Madam Speaker, the member opposite presents a picture that is entirely out of step with reality. As the Honourable Member is fully aware, the world has been in a global pandemic for 2 years. Borders were forced to close worldwide, and for obvious reasons, this resulted in some processing delays in our immigration system. In spite of the pandemic's many challenges, Madam Speaker, Canada admitted a record 405,000 permanent residents last year. This surpasses the previous record from 1913, making it the most newcomers admitted to Canada in a single year in our entire history. Since the start of the pandemic, IRCC has worked to improve processing for all permanent residence applications, and our work to date has produced results. As part of the 2021 economic and fiscal update, our government announced an investment of $85 million to further build on our progress to date. This will enable us to further reduce processing times and process more permanent and temporary resident applications. Most importantly, we'll get back to our processing service standards in various programs by the end of this year, including study permits, work permits, and permanent resident card renewals. We're also working to reduce processing times for visitor visas and proof of citizenship. As the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship announced on January 31st, the government has implemented a number of additional measures to further improve the client experience and modernize the immigration system. These measures are part of a broader process to address key challenges faced by our clients and to achieve the more predictable processing times that our clients expect and that our clients deserve. Madam Speaker, Canadian businesses are in need of support, and our government knows we have a role to play in increasing the available workforce. On April 22nd, the Minister addressed the decision made last fall to temporarily pause invitations to apply under the Federal High Skilled Stream, including the Canadian Experience class, Federal Skilled Workers class, and Federal Skilled Trades class. He announced that in July of this year, we will end this temporary pause and resume inviting qualified candidates to apply for permanent residence. We anticipate that the vast majority of new applicants will be processed within the 6-month service standard. At the same time, he announced that beginning in mid-June, Canada will extend post-graduation work permits for recent international graduates. Those whose permits have already expired or will expire this year will be eligible for an additional open work permit of 18 months. In addition, as of April 25th, nearly 35,000 agricultural workers have already arrived in Canada for the 2022 season. And this represents a 10% increase over the number of agricultural workers that had arrived by this time last year. As you can see, Madam Speaker, we are doing our utmost to ensure that employers have the workers that they need. Moving forward, we are going to continue to support those who wish to live in Canada. And I was pleased to learn that IRCC has surpassed its goal to make 147,000 permanent residents' final decisions in the first quarter of 2022. From January 1st to March 31st, 2022, there have been over 156,000 final decisions on permanent resident applications. This is a doubling of the number of final decisions in the same time period in 2021. This is an encouraging example of progress, Madam Speaker. But our work is not yet finished. We're moving forward to ensure Canada's proud history of immigration is matched by a modern immigration system that supports our economic recovery, improves client experience, and strengthens our communities. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Member for Brantford-Brant.
Madam Speaker, we've just listened to a great collection of talking points that Canadians and parliamentarians are hearing over and over and over again. Will the Parliamentary Secretary acknowledge this failure and all the problems that his government caused to Canadians and other nationals who will become future Canadians? Is the government willing to consider any compensation for the delays, the canceled trips, the personal traumas and lost opportunities for those nationals? When will this immigration system be reformed, transformed, upgraded, and start working efficiently? These are the questions that must be answered by the Parliamentary Secretary on behalf of his Liberal government. Enough of the talking points.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Member for his questions and his comments. But, Madam Speaker, as the Honourable Member is fully aware, the world has been in a global pandemic for 2 years. And in spite of this, we landed over 405,000 immigrants last year, which is an all-time record to help with our economic recovery. And as the Minister of Immigration announced on January 31st, the government has implemented a number of measures to further improve client experience and modernize the immigration system. We have also committed an investment of $85 million to further reduce processing times and build on our progress to date. Most importantly, we'll get back to our processing service standards in various programs by the end of this year. We are taking a whole-of-government approach to address labor shortages across our country. We have taken major steps towards this by processing more than 100,000 work permit applications in the first quarter of 2022, nearly doubling the number processed over the same period in 2021. Madam Speaker, as I mentioned,
That is it. The motion to adjourn the House is